Hello, I'm Mike. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to tell you why you need to start thinking like an immigrant if you want to be successful. If you don't know by now, I'm an immigrant. I grew up in a place called Lagos, Nigeria. It's in West Africa. All of my childhood spent there, and I came to the United States when I was 12 years old. For many kids who grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, or any other parts of the world, when you come to a place like the United States, it almost feels like a completely different planet. Now, ask any kid that grew up across the Atlantic Ocean like I did, and they'll tell you that it's a completely different world, at least when I grew up. I grew up in the 90s. Certain things that I didn't have growing up, and all of a sudden, I come to this new country or this new world and it's everywhere. So I'll give you an example. Basic amenities like having electricity, being able to watch TV and cartoons, having toys. Those are things that I didn't grow up with, believe it or not. As a matter of fact, it's a joke that most African kids create their own toys, and that was the case for me. I used to build toy cars when I was a kid because I didn't have toys. Simple things that somebody from the United States would grow up with, I did. You can ask me stuff about Pokemon today or some cartoon that every kid should know about, and I would not be able to tell you because I did not grow up with that, sadly. But here are some things that I did grow up with. I grew up with two amazing parents, and I still have both of them today. In a place like Nigeria, people are raised, or kids are raised more through an extended family, meaning literally a whole community will help in raising you. So I was influenced by uncles and aunties and my neighbors, so many people. And that was also another cultural shock, moving here where you barely talk to your next door neighbor. Whereas where I grew up, your next door neighbor is like a family. Literally, your parents drop you off to your next door neighbor to babysit you while they go to work. So those are some of the things that you would find differently. But more importantly, something you'd find with immigrants and immigrant families is that we all sort of walk with a chip on our shoulders. What I mean by that is we have this extra hump to do better, to do good, because in a way we feel like we're representing our families, we're representing our parents because they work hard for us to be here and get us the opportunity that we have. Now, how does that connect to being successful? All these things that I'm going to talk about, it can be a good thing for the most part, but also it can be unhealthy, as I've seen with some people, even maybe in myself, because I had to do some self-reflection to be able to make this video. Here's some other ways immigrants think differently than a native-born person. First and foremost is perspective. As I said, I grew up in a world where you're extremely humbled by the amenities and the environment that you have compared to somebody who grew up here in the United States. So I'll give an example. When I think about the public transportation here, it's the most effective or the most efficient that I've seen, even though sometimes the train may be late or the bus may be late. But the fact that we even have the infrastructure and understanding that men and women, mostly men, some of them died building those subways in New York so that somebody like me or you can have access to them anytime we want to. I have that perspective when I think of actually where I grew up, where we didn't necessarily have roads to drive. And when I compare the two, it makes me understand, okay, right now is not the time to complain. I can actually be grateful the fact that I even have this infrastructure to use. So that's one of the most important things, or one of the most important ways an immigrant thinks compared to a native-born American who has all these things already available to them. Another way we think, an immigrant will always walk with a chip on their shoulders. I know I do. And this is not generally across the board, but oftentimes we do. Again, the reason being, you think about where you come from. You think about the things that you had or did not have. Also, you've got your parents, your family pushing you to do better. So there's this need to be successful because you understand that crossing that ocean is a big deal. You feel the need to be successful given however much opportunity that you have. So oftentimes when you meet an immigrant, they're working and walking around the earth with a chip on their shoulders, and they feel the need to perform at a high level. Another way an immigrant thinks, we're privileged. Believe it or not, you feel that when you're here. I know I do. The reason being that when I think of some of my peers or some of the kids that I grew up with or that I went to school with in Lagos, I talk to some of them often and I understand whatever situation that they're in. Now, you look at a place like Nigeria where I'm from, a lot of things have changed. The infrastructure is a lot better. Tech is actually booming in Lagos, Nigeria, but there's still some dire conditions there. There's still some really, really bad situations going on there. When I speak to people back home, you will not understand just how many people would exchange positions with you at a flip like that. So understanding that, knowing that there are hundreds of thousands or even millions of people who will switch positions with you any day. The fact that you're here, you have more opportunity, you have a better system that you can actually evolve and grow in than they do. When you understand that, then you understand that you're privileged. You're privileged to be here. You're privileged to have the opportunities that you do. No matter how nice or crazy the United States is, most immigrants still believe that this is the greatest country on earth, because this truly is a place where you need a dream, and if you're consistent enough, it's gonna happen. So understanding that aspect makes us feel privileged. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that immigrants feel like they represent an entire country. Oftentimes, we operate as if we are representing an entire nation or an entire continent. Now, a native-born person, they don't have that kind of pressure. You grew up in New York, or you were born and raised in California or in Georgia, you don't care about representing, the entire United States. Now, if you were outside of the United States, or say you were performing in the Olympics or something, then you would have that pressure because you're literally representing your country. Guess what? That's how a lot of immigrants feel every single day. They feel like they are representing their countries whenever they're here with the opportunities that they have. So with that mentality, chances are if you push hard enough, you are going to be successful. And this is what I mean by you need to start thinking like an immigrant in order to be successful. This is not always healthy, okay? Your parents or your family pushing you to do certain things or to go into certain careers, it's not always the most healthy things. For me, I'm lucky that I have parents who didn't push me one way or the other. They allowed me to choose what I wanted to do with my life, and it's worked out great. Okay, so really I want to end this video by saying I'm really saying all of this to end at gratitude, because that's what it all means. Privilege, feeling like you're representing someone, having the perspective to compare two worlds. It's all about gratitude, because oftentimes you're in this race to be successful, you're gonna hit some walls, and when you get to a place where you feel closed in, gratitude is probably the best thing you can practice. When you have an immigrant mentality, it forces you to really think about where you came from, what you came from. And when you think about that and you compare to where you actually are, you see that you've come a long way. And in that moment, you need to be grateful. That alone may be the motivation that you need to keep going. Thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate the time spent with me, and make sure you subscribe, like this video, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.